they embrace the baby, and it becomes part of their village. What keeps happening, though, is they see more and more babies, and soon many more people within the village are mobilized in order to save these babies. And eventually it's becoming very exhaustive. People are very tired. They're not able to save all of the babies. Their resources are getting used up. They've built a whole infrastructure in order to support the integration of these babies and bringing them in and support them with education and everything else around it. And all of a sudden, one of the villagers says, what about we go upstream? What about we go and find why they're coming into the river in the first place and go and stop that from happening? And it's met with, mixed excitement and interest. We have some that are saying, but what if we fail? We need everybody here in order to be able to save the babies. And we're doing not bad job. Why don't we just continue? And then you have others that say, well, it's not really our responsibility to change the system, and so, why do we want to do that? And then, you have others that say, hey, but if we do that, what are we going to do with all of our time instead? So I'm hoping that everybody in this room is actually those that would put up their hands and say, we need to swim upstream and we need to stop the problem, because that is essentially what has been inhibiting us. So the disruptive innovation in healthcare is nothing new. When I was looking about preparing for this discussion, I noticed, even in 2000, there was an article in the Harvard Business Review where Christensen and others commented that technology has the ability, and disruption, innovation, has the ability to really solve the problems in healthcare, but we need the entrenched powers to get out of the way and allow us to actually let the market change the path forwards. And I think it's great. We're in this wonderful point in time right now where we have all of these advances. Many people have already mentioned a lot of the technology, a lot of the applications that we have, and basically the analytics that will help us to redefine healthcare and better serve the patients moving forwards. But the challenges are that it isn't going to be something we can do alone. It does have to come back to that village. It has to come back to the fact that we all have to mobilize behind this, because there are a great many conversations that need to happen, not just with the regulators, but also to win the trust or continue to win the trust of patients, and also to think about different payer pathways, different discussions on how you're going to be reimbursed or insured based on what we understand more about you. And I think another point to consider is that as we look at this convergence between R&D and medical affairs in this case, but it also applies to the other functions, is how does one part and the action here really impact us here? The telemedicine opportunity is huge, but at the same time, I read another article that was saying that now a physician is performing 16 hours of administrative work a week versus only 10 5 years ago. So we're asking people to do a lot more and to combine their in-person consultations with also this great dream of telemedicine, but we're also not giving them the same patient pathway for each patient. So some patients, it's wonderful to have telemedicine, others it's not. So how do we bring this all together and think very mindfully about actually creating the change within the organization and within the healthcare ecosystem? So we are at this point of ambition, huge ambition as a result of COVID, huge acceptance. I heard it said earlier as well, we had to. So that forced us to make these changes. And in the middle, the article quoted is from McKinsey, and I think it's no surprise to everybody. It did ensure that we moved faster because people had to adjust. We had to remain competitive. We had to remain connected to people and find new ways. We had to still find the way to serve patients in trials to ensure they still got their drugs even when they were in another country and stranded because they were blocked. So it gave us a very different mindset. And we did ensure that that ambition has been met with the ability. And as we continue to adopt more and more technologies and more opportunities, that continues to fuel this capability build and the increase in our abilities. And it's this wonderful circular loop. But as it was noted earlier, there is a huge exhaustion, a huge fatigue. Some of us embrace it, and some of us think this is wonderful. We have a great opportunity to keep going, and we have that belief in ourselves. But for others, it is very distressing. And I think as an organization, it's true. The biggest challenge for us right now is the people. And it's the people that we, need to keep us moving forwards. Another really interesting point is, if we don't get this right, it won't just be the great resignation that we'll be challenged with. And this is not my saying, but I love it so much. It will also be the great didn't ever apply. Because if we are not remaining relevant in our companies and pushing forwards, we will not be attracting the talent of the future. So for me, this is the burning platform that needs to keep going, is we have the abilities now, and we should continue to have the ambition to push further. The wonderful part of all of this is that patients are able now and have the ability to really own more of their healthcare pathway. And I think the great thing that I've seen, some of these wonderful wearables, these analytical tools, are going to really enable that and empower them. And we know that patients that are empowered to take care of or be part of their own treatment strategy are doing very much better because they have that mindset. One thing that I saw the other day is that we also have a new wearable from the University of California in San Diego, a very small patch that actually is being trialed and tested, developed for patients to be able to monitor their own lactate, alcohol, and glucose levels within their interstitial fluid. So it's very non-invasive. And I think this is something critical that we keep continuing to push for these wonderful solutions to enable that telemedicine, to enable us to understand more, and provide them with the tools to do so. I think the challenge, though, is continuing the trust momentum and the continuum that we have built throughout the COVID pandemic. The face of pharma has very much changed, and we need to continue in that dialogue with them to ensure that they understand why we want to measure things, that we're only measuring things when it's relevant, that we are using and leveraging technologies. Blockchain was mentioned earlier, that these things are all part of that process, and that we actually do something with the data. So I know it's really, really a wonderful thing to collate data, but if we're not using it, and we're not using it responsibly, then why are we asking people to commit to us and do so? And I think another part of this is we look to a more precision medicine world, and potentially the opportunity to leverage different data sources and patient profiles more broadly, including their genomics information, proteomics, etc. We have to continue to show them how it's of benefit to them, because again, it's something additional that we have to do, and it's something that we have to continue to ask for when maybe we can administer the majority of a clinical trial or their treatment at home, but hey, we're asking you every 2 weeks still to come in and do a blood draw because we need to be able to analyze it. So we need to clearly show patients how the benefit of our analytics, our activities, can continue to improve and really truly give them a better and more personalized encounter with industry, with their treatment. I think another part for me of the wonder of where we're advancing to is being able to harness some of these analytics for better decision making. So the first for me is how do we move from a current situation where we have wonderful experts and people that are, with 30, 40 years in medicine, but also they have no hope anymore of remaining current with all of the information that's available. So we live in a world of infoxication. It's no lie. There is no possibility, even if all you did would be to dedicate your time to the consumption of information in your therapeutic area. There's no way that you could remain current. So one of the things that we are certainly very interested to look at is how do you start to bring more sense from what's around? How do you start to also bring more sense from more sources? So not just the literature, but also taking an understanding of social media, of patient discussion forums, of other elements that are coming in, combine it with your own internal information and information sources from the field, so any insights that you have, and start to build this into more concrete tools for decision making that enable you to not only decide to move forwards in a particular way, but also decide to stop something. And deciding to stop something with really the data behind it. That it's not just asking for somebody to make an emotive decision. And this, in the end, should allow us to improve the way that we're able to develop our medicines. I spoke as well already about the human data-guided medicine. So this would be an incredible ambition, and one that I am very much embedded in, is how do we start to look more broadly at the patient in terms of their 365 view? So not just their lab results and so on that you get on a single day, but also more about the things that you can understand about their personal life and other. Can we start to understand more and monitor patients' gait as a kind of a signal that there's potentially some risk factor for something? Can we start to leverage information about the way that they're responding to telephone calls to build that understanding of a regression in cognitive function? So combine that also with the opportunity to better understand their genomic profiles and understand their biomarkers for certain things. And I think this is probably where we're going to move forwards the most in the coming years, because we have the ability now and the ambition to do so. But I think it would be remiss to also not focus on what's been a topic for many of the discussions already today, is that next best action, or that guided next step. And I think it's becoming ever more critical. So if you have physicians that only have a minute fraction of their data to dedicate now to medical education or consumption of information to further their understanding, we need to do this more meaningfully. And I think it's been wonderful what's been shared already about the metaverse, other options, but it's certainly the way that we can best serve the healthcare professionals in order to ensure that they're able to do their job well and understand and support patients. So this, I started with a river, and to finish with a river, this is the Cano Cristalis River in Colombia, and it changes its color depiction every day based on the speed, the depth, the light conditions. So it's really, truly an epitome of that diversity, that resilience, that adaptability, that agility. And I think as we move forwards into the coming years, is something we really need to invest in as companies, is how do we best encourage that? How do we best build for that? It's not a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow for patients, but it's surely a reason for innovation in order that we can create a better future for them.